Welcome to the program on Plus TV Africa. Today, the 20th of May, 2019. This is Off the Press, and we are set to roll. I am Tokunbo Taiwo. We do say Ramadan Mubarak to all of our Muslim viewers, and thanks very much for joining us. Okay, so on today's episode of the program, we've got The Punch, we've got This Day, we have The Nation, we have Vanguard newspapers, and of course we've got Complete Sports. Yes, okay, so I'll just take you through the Punch newspaper headlines. We'll start with the Punch newspaper first of all, and there are quite a number of stories and a number of pictures as well. We'll start at the top. NNPC removes NPDC boss, 49 others in major shakeup. That headline is detailed, the full story is actually detailed in page 49. So that's at the top of the Punch. Underneath that headline, we've got on the left-hand side, at end Apapa Gridlock within 60 days in office, says Sanwo-Olu, and that story is on page 10. To the right-hand side of that headline, we've got NFIU guidelines on LG funds, illegal, says governors. That's on page 14. And coming down, we've got the main headline, governors neglect healthcare as state hospitals rot away. That story is on page 2. And underneath that headline, we can already see pictures of rotting hospitals. Even at the bottom as well, we can see some more of the different hospitals that are rotting away. At the very bottom of the Punch newspaper, we've got on the left-hand side in green, we have Islamization. Fani Kayode attacks Lamido as ex-governor slams Obasanjo. That story is on page 5. In the middle, we've got next to that, Ogun community accuses Christ Embassy of land grabbing. The story is detailed on pages 4 and 5. And on the bottom right-hand corner, we have also in green, school gardener arrested for beating WASC candidate to death. Also detailed on pages 4 and 5. So those are the major headlines on the Punch newspapers. Let's look at the back of the newspaper. The back of the Punch newspaper, we have the usual column by Henry Boyo, Economic Renaissance, yes, and this time he's talking about Naira redesign, redenomination, or re-evaluation, and that's the million-dollar question that he's asking. If you'd like to find out what he details there, grab a copy of the Punch. So that's it really on the Punch newspaper. Okay, we're moving on to our next newspaper now. That paper is This Day. So This Day newspapers, we'll start at the top and work our way down to the bottom. We have at the very top, renewed inflationary pressure may force MPC's hands on interest rate. The story starts there on that front page and continues on page 8. And underneath that, we've got Kachuku, optimistic oil supply cut deal will be extended. That story is on page 8 as well. We're looking at the major headline on This Day newspaper, which is at the bottom of your current screen. Adamawa, Kano, Ogun, or your top the list of Buhari's aides. And underneath that, we've got a couple of riders, Ogun, Edo, Imo, dominate boards and agencies' role. Also underneath that, we've got Southwest, Northwest, Northeast lead in political appointments. Okay, so that's at the top of This Day. Let's quickly look at the bottom. At the bottom of This Day newspaper, we have a picture that we can see to the right-hand side at the bottom there. The Alafin of Oyo, Obalamide Adeyemi, and the Oyo State Governor, Senator Abiola Ajimobi, during the inauguration of dualized Ibadan Oyo Isheyin Owode Road, named after the monarch, and that's all in Oyo State over the weekend. So that's the picture there on the right-hand side. Let's look to the left now. We've got a number of headlines once again on This Day newspaper. On the left-hand side, we have call NFIU to order, governors urge Buhari, and that story is detailed on page 8. And underneath that, we've got states agree on legislature, judiciary's financial autonomy, and that story is on page 9. Those are the headlines on the front cover of This Day. We're just going to go all the way to the back now to have a look at what the back cover of This Day says. It's the usual headlines once again. At the top of the On the back cover at the top, we have Alex Otie's Outside the Box column, and his headline today is "To Hell with Selfish Interest." And there's also a picture of Bayelsa Governor Siriake Dixon on that column, so probably he's talking about that. But if you want to find out more, grab a copy of This Day. Let's look at the bottom of that back cover. We have Fashola, the unabashed lobbyist, at the bottom there. And that's written by Hakim Bello. If you want to find out more about that, do you think Fashola is an unabashed lobbyist? Then grab a copy of This Day newspaper. Okay, so that's it on the front and back covers of This Day newspapers. We'll move on now to our next newspaper. We have The Nation next. Okay, so we've got The Nation, we've got a Vanguard, and we've got Complete Sports. So I'll just go through The Nation, Vanguard. We'll go on a quick break and then we'll come back to do Complete Sports. So The Nation first. Governors lose more amid battle for local government funds. That's the major headline that we can see at the bottom of the screen there. And also in red, a rider that says Assembly Judiciary allocations gone, and Buhari urged to stop NFI. Let's look at the top of The Nation. There are a number of stories. We'll start in the top left-hand corner. CAN, which is the Christian Association of Nigeria, gives federal government wake-up call on security. That's on page 7. Also in the top left-hand corner, just underneath that first headline, is Obasanjo turning into bigot, says Lamido. And that story is on page 5. Let's look at the right-hand side, the top right-hand corner, that is, of The Nation newspaper. We have a number of stories, and I'm starting at the very top. 12 Kaduna reps elect back Bia Miller, and that story is on page 5. And underneath that, we've got Christ School's alumnus abducted, page 8. Wilder must be Joshua's next opponent. That's sports, and that's on page 47. We've got underneath that Nigerian soldier killed in Mali, and that story is also on page 7. Okay. Just we can see a picture of Dangote in the middle of The Nation newspaper there. PDP, to the left of that is a headline that says PDP governors reject El Rufai in two-man race for NGF chairman. And on the right, where Dangote's picture is, apparently he's the world's 11th greatest leader, says US Journal. And the story starts from the front cover and continues on page 6. Okay, let's look at the bottom of The Nation newspaper now. We have a picture of a festival that it's taking place, and the headline on that story is to the left, which says, "Let's go dancing with Dalong." That's the Nzem Berom Cultural Festival in Lagos, and the Youth and Sports Development Minister Solomon Lalong to the left-hand side, dancing along the dancers at the Nzem Berom Cultural Festival, which took place recently in Jos. Now, there's a last headline on The Nation newspaper, and it's right at the very bottom, detailed in a red background. We're starting from the left and working our way to the right. Owando and others raise funds for Northeast. That story is on page 7. And to the right, we have on the bottom right-hand corner, editors to get NIPSS course slots. That story is on page 5. So that's The Nation, the front cover, and all of the headlines on that national daily. Let's look at the back now. We've got the back cover of The Nation newspaper. We have the usual column, comment and debate by Sam Omatseye in Touch. That's his usual column, and this time he's talking about a tale of two governors, and he's talking about Shetima and Sheriff. And then we've got also on that page, just in the bottom right-hand corner of your current screen, we have for Omoagege. Don't know what that is all about, but if you'd like to find out more, grab a copy of The Nation. Let's look at the bottom of The Nation newspaper at the back page. We have Hardball, which is a usual column that comes on a regular basis. Says the headline for that is Restore June 12 and Slay June 12. Okay, so if you want to find out more about that, grab a copy of The Nation newspaper. And that's that on the Nation newspaper. We're moving on to our next newspaper now, which is Vanguard. Okay, Vanguard is next in line, and we're starting at the very top. In the top left-hand corner, we've got economic growth remains weak at 2% in Q1 of 2019, and these are the forecasts by analysts. And next to that, we have in the middle at the top, scores killed, many injured as Boko Haram fires a rocket launcher into Borno IDP's camp. That story is detailed on page 8. And in the top right-hand corner, we have why not creeping fascism and how criminals hijacked politics in Nigeria. That's an article by Pat Utomi, and it's detailed on pages 32 and 33. Okay, let's go to the center of the newspaper now, which is at the bottom of your screen. As you can see right there, the major headline is Storm over Obasanjo's stance on Fulanization agenda. The story is detailed on page 5. Underneath that, we've got a couple of riders. Lamido Musa Junaid Muhammad berate Obasanjo. And underneath that, we've got Obasanjo is right. Ohaneze, Afenifere, Pandef, and others say. So that's that on the top of the Vanguard newspapers. We'll look at the bottom now. At the bottom of the Vanguard newspapers, we have to the right-hand side, we have Dangote rated 11th of 50 world greatest leaders. That's a headline that we saw in one of the earlier papers, and that's on page 9. And underneath that, also on the right-hand side, we have suspected robbers kill Igbinedion Varsity lecturer. That story is detailed on page 6. So the bottom there, we can see a massive picture. From left, we have Mr. Kyari Bukar, past chairman of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, Ms. Edem Wosone, head of office, United Nations, and a number of important dignitaries regarding the United Nations Nigerian Humanitarian Fund private sector over the weekend during one of the events there. So all of their pictures are detailed right there. At the bottom of the Vanguard newspaper, we have, starting from the left-hand side, we have LG funds. Falana Agbakoba disagree as governors ask Buhari to call NFRU to order. That story is on page 14. And next to that, we have a picture of Atiku, who is demanding 500 million naira in damages from Buhari's aid for defamation. That story is on page 8. Next to that, we have Kokori, who says industrial action looms as Ngige Nupeng Tango over unions' finances. That story is also detailed on page 8. Okay, and that's it really on the Vanguard in newspapers. At the very bottom, we have different number of columnists: Owe Lakemfa, Shobowale, Henry Boyo. All of those are available on pages 31, 29, and 30 of the Vanguard newspapers. We'll move on to the back cover of Vanguard newspaper to see what's available on there. Funny enough, it's actually sports, and there's a number of stories there. But rather than go into the sports stories, I'll wait for us to go on a quick break. When we return, we'll be doing complete sports, and we'll have our in-house analysts here to sort of analyze and review the stories on complete sports. We'll take a quick break right here on Off the Press, right here on Plus TV Africa, and we'll be right back to discuss sports. Welcome back. You're watching Monday's edition of Off the Press right here on Plus TV Africa, where the big stories live. On Off the Press, today's edition, right about now, we're moving on to the sports segment, and we've got complete sports next. And here to discuss and review the major sports headlines, we've got our in-house sports analyst, Samson Oloyede. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, so let's quickly go through the headlines and then probably discuss one or two of those headlines. We're starting at the top of complete sports. We've got Messi hits 50th goal of the season. Yes, and then next to that, we've got also at the top, Ronaldo named Serie A MVP. So that's the most valued player. On the top right-hand corner, we have Onyekuru fires Gala to 22nd Turkish League title. Eagles forward hits goal number 17 in Turkey. So that's in the top right-hand corner of Complete Sport. To the right-hand side, we've got Barca boss confirms Griezmann talks. That's on the right-hand side. And then coming to the very center of our Complete Sport at the bottom, we've got Omeruo plays down injury scare. Okay, so that's at the bottom on the left-hand side, ahead AFCON 2019. I'll just take that title again. Omeruo plays down injury scare. And then to the right-hand side, we've got Swan Probe, AFN over IAF's $150,000 fraud. That's quite interesting. And on the bottom, at the very bottom, we've got Eagles get Carlo boost. Bordeaux winger thrilled to return after 8 weeks. And next to that, we've got Sanchez desperate to leave Man United. And at the very bottom on the left-hand side, we have big player, big personality, big leader. City Stars pay tribute to company. And then on the right-hand side, we've got ruthless Nadal dominates Djokovic to win Italian Open title. Okay, let's look at the back before we actually delve. Oh, just adverts there. All right, so that's Complete Sports, the major headlines. Let me ask you, of all of these headlines, which one grabs your attention the most and which one do you want to delve into first?
Let's start from the home front. I like starting from the Nigerians. Omeri plays down injury woes or injury scare. That's a big one because we have the African Cup of Nations, around the corner, and we want our best legs, to prosecute the tournament itself. So it's good to see the player himself, trying to temper down, anxieties that may have fled as a result of the injury scare he had. I think he should be fit enough to make the squad, It's also good to see Rio Yekeru, notching the...
before we move on to that, I just wanted to ask quickly on that, Omeru. So, I mean, downplaying that, do you not think that may sort of mislead? And then do you think that's like belittling what is actually there?
Well, not necessarily misleading. It's more of, reassuring the fans and calming, as I said, tempers or anxieties that may have fled as a result of the injury.
Okay, what I really mean is that downplaying those fears.
Well, I don't think it's about downplaying. It's definitely the medical team will give the final decision as regards his fitness, to play the tournament. What's more important is the fact that the players come out to state that, hey, the injury is not as worse as everyone feared at first, and probably in 2-3 weeks it will be good to go. Sometimes you have certain injuries, probably like a calf injury or an ankle injury, and there are fears that it could be, for 3-4 months before you're back to full fitness. But sometimes you just realize it's just a strain, and then within 3-4 weeks the player is back. So it's probably one of such scenarios that his own case is. Let's just hope that he's fit enough to make the Eagles. That's one good defender we should have, even if not in our starting 11. As a backup defender, we should have him in the squad. All
right then, thanks, Samson. Let's move on to Onyekuru now. You were saying earlier.
Yeah, it's good for the young lad. He's one of the forwards we invited for the African Cup of Nations. He's in the provisional squad, and he lifted the Turkish Cup, sometime about 2 weeks ago. Now notching, Galatasaray's 22nd league title. It's quite impressive for the young lad because for players, you want to be in a winning team, you want to learn, and more importantly, those titles boost your confidence and form. So it's good to see him win titles with his club side, and hopefully we replicate that with the African Cup of Nations triumph.
Okay, all right, let's talk about Messi hitting 50th goal.
Well, it's not new. I mean, it's Messi. We see this virtually season in, season out. It's just the high standards he and Ronaldo have set, for this generation of footballers in terms of goal scoring. He scored a brace in Barcelona's 2-0 against Apapa, and it will likely end the season with the European Golden Shoe. He's clinched the Pichichi Award. That's the highest goal scorer award in Spain, in the Spanish La Liga, and it looks on course to clinch that of the European Golden Shoe. He's 6 goals ahead of Kylian Mbappe, and I don't think Mbappe will score 6 goals in the last 2 games, for PSG. It's yet to be seen, but I think he's, perfectly poised to clinch another European Golden Shoe. He won the last one, by the way.
Okay, all right. And just finally, let's look at this. Barca boss confirms Griezmann talks.
you have to credit the way Barcelona has gone about recruitment this season. They pretty much understood that a generation had, passed in terms of the Xavis, the Iniestas, and there was a need to replace them. Neymar has left as well. Dembele hasn't, fit in well due to injury worries and disciplinary issues. Coutinho has struggled to find his fit in 18 months. There was the need to get new players on board. At first, they went for Frankie de Jong from Ajax. They signed him up during the winter summer in January, but allowed him to stay at Ajax till the end of the season. That was a brilliant one because at 21, Frankie de Jong is one of the most sought after midfielders in the world. So it was good enough that they were able to close that deal even before the summer began. And that was in January. Now they signed, Griezmann, or they're on the verge of signing Griezmann. We're all waiting for an official confirmation. It shows you that they're approaching the market the right way. There are also talks of Matthew De Ligt, on the verge of completing his, signing to Barcelona as well. I think overall, you have to give credit to them. They've realized certain positions they need players, and they've gone for them. Griezmann will definitely bring about goals. It will bring assists, teamwork. We've seen that at Atletico Madrid over 5 years, where he was the leading scorer for all of those 5 years. I think it would just complement Suarez up front, and they won't even have issues with his settling in. He's been in Spain all these years, so he has no issues with adapting to the Spanish La Liga. Do not forget that before he got to Atletico Madrid, he came from Real Sociedad. So it's all about being at home, basically.
Exactly.
And then with players like, Messi in the mix, you get the feeling that Griezmann is a player that can give you 30, 40 goals, or at least 35 goals in a season. So I think it's a good one in the right direction. And should they get Matthijs de Ligt, they're good to go, really, to compete on all fronts, especially the Champions League for next season.
All right then, Samson, thank you very much indeed. That's what we're going to wrap it off because we're out of time. And that's how we wrap up on today's edition of The Press. We're back tomorrow at precisely 8:30 for the latest headlines on the national dailies. Until then, I remain Tokunbo Taiwo saying good morning.